recording. You may begin.
Good evening. Please note that this program is being recorded and remember to keep your microphone muted. Thank you. As we begin, please open a new tab or window and answer a few short questions. The link has been put in the chat. Can you imagine being bullied, beaten, robbed, or killed because you wore a red shirt, or because you had blonde hair, or because you believed the world was round, or because you were American, or because of your faith? 82 years ago tonight, between November 9th and 10th, 1938, Nazis in Germany terrorized men, women, and children simply because they were Jewish, by destroying and torching synagogues and Jewish homes, schools, and businesses, killing close to 100 Jews. Kristallnacht, which literally means the night of broken glass, also marked the beginning of the final solution, the systematic murder of 6 million people just because they were Jewish. I'm Maddy Duerr, and I'm so honored you have joined us tonight to remember the many lives affected by the Holocaust. I worked on this program as part of my Girl Scout Gold Award project to increase Holocaust awareness. Helping me in this venture today is Miss Heather Dune McAdam. Miss McAdam is the director and president of Rena's Promise Foundation, which was created to further the vision of Holocaust survivor Rena Cornrick Gallison to help create a world unhindered by prejudice, racism, or hatred. Miss McAdam assisted in writing Miss Gallison's memoir, Rena's Promise, A Story of Sisters in Auschwitz. She's had the privilege of interviewing numerous Holocaust survivors and writing the book 999, The Extraordinary Young Woman of the First Official Transport to Auschwitz, the story of nearly 1,000 young, unmarried Jewish women. Please welcome Miss Heather Dune McAdam.
Hey, everybody. It's weird. Everybody's muted, so they can't clap.
Picture.
Yeah, so Maddy, I'm going to go ahead and just show the video really quick. Is that right? Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, so I have to do my screen share first, and good evening, everybody. I'm in New York right now, so it's a little bit late and it's quite warm. I had to open the window, which is very exciting here. And I'm just going to do a quick screen share. I've got to move it over so it's all in the right place. I just want to make sure that that is okay. So let me know if it's not. Can you see it? Okay. Okay, good. I'm seeing a thumbs up from the other Heather. Yes, excellent name.
Just a question, Miss McAdam.
Sorry?
This is your book?
This is, yes. So I can tell you a little bit. I am a writer and a documentary filmmaker. So this is the book that I just came out, and it's now out in Slovak, Dutch. I have them all here. It's very exciting. This is the British and Australian edition, which they, can you see it? 900. They had to change the title because the emergency services number in Australia and England is 999. So they didn't want to call it 999. This is the Spanish edition. And then we have the French edition, which I love because I can actually read it. This is the Catalan edition, which is Catalan is in Costa Brava in Spain. And this is the Italian edition. And it's coming out in Russia and China and Latvia and Slovenia and loads of other places, which is really exciting. But I'm also doing a documentary film. And what happened was I was making this documentary film. I'm going to show you a very short clip that gives you sort of an introduction of what I talk about. But I'm going to tell you is that while I was working on the documentary, my husband said, you really need to write a book. And I really didn't want to write another Holocaust book because it's really not easy to do. And for some reason, I thought doing a documentary film would be easier. That's not true. So I'm still doing the documentary film. Book you can sit down and just write. A documentary film, you actually pay other people to do things. So it becomes quite difficult. But I'm going to give you a quick 6-minute intro. You're going to meet Edith, who was the woman right here. That's Edith and her husband, Ladislav Grossman, who was a very, very famous Slovak and Israeli writer. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and start this for you. I hope the sound is okay. Flag me if it's not, please.
The whole tragedy starts with the girls. In my eyes, the girls were the worst. They have been the first victims.
In 2017, I contacted Edith Grossman in order to film a documentary about the first Jewish transport to Auschwitz, which she was on. That transport was made up of 999 young women, most of whom were teenagers like Edith.
I was living in a small Slovakian city. We were 6,000 citizens there, about 60% Jews, and we were in very good relations with the non-Jews. It was a real democracy.
Thanks to Edith's extraordinary enthusiasm and generosity, I ended up writing a book about the girls on her transport as well. But our first conversation was on FaceTime.
Ever, you sent me the first email I get home. All of a sudden, Heather June. Who is this Heather June? And today, I don't know, 20 mails and your face also.
For the 75th anniversary ceremonies in Poprad, Slovakia, Edith traveled with her granddaughter, Naomi.
Listen, I am not important anymore. I cannot default to the world anything, only to tell them the story. What can happen? First thing is that everything is done in the name of God and in the name of religion. I'm sorry, I'm sad, I'm really sad. But I don't want the people to cry how I was suffering. I was suffering. Not that is the purpose, because other people are suffering also. The any good, nothing. People are very surprised that I went so night. I was sitting in Atania in Israel, by the beach. There is a beautiful park, and you know the sky was so beautiful blue, and the sea, the Mediterranean, the sea was so green blue, and on the horizon I saw a release, something so beautiful, and then I said to my sister, I know where God is sitting. I saw the place where God is sitting, you know, and I would like the world to feel these feelings. It's so a nice feeling of peace and of beauty. And you want to see how I am giving a kiss?
Are you excited?
Edith did not live to see every edition of 999, but her spirit is imbued in every page of the book and every minute of our documentary.
What was my purpose on this earth? Was I important at all? So, I wish you a good night. You go to bed.
Thank you so much.
It's already in bed the time that you are now. So, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank
Good
you
night.
so much. Shalom.
Bye-bye.
It always gets me. So we just lost Edith in July, and yeah, so I still miss her terribly. And so I'll give you a little background, and I know that this is about Kristallnacht, and what many people don't know is that Kristallnacht also happened in Slovakia. It wasn't just Germany, and so Rena's Promise is the first book I wrote. There's a copy of that, if you can see both of me. And Rena was hiding in Slovakia. She was Polish and she was hiding in Slovakia. And and when I met her, I thought she was the first transport to Auschwitz, and I had never heard that there was a first Jewish transport. I'd never heard that it was all girls. She told me this amazing story. I did a lot of research to make sure that she wasn't making it up. And sure enough, I discovered that, yeah, it was true. And it was something that history had pretty much just glossed over and never spoken about. And I think, well, I don't know why. That's a good conversation for us to have. You guys can help me unpack that. So anyway, this is Rena here, and this is her sister, Danka. Danka was on the second transport. Both of them are hiding in Slovakia. And also, so this is after the war. This is Rena and Danka and three of their friends. This is Rosa here, Agnieszka, and I forget her name. And then this is in Poland, and this is Danka and Dina Drenger, who is her best friend and cousin of their best friends. They had two other best friends, Erna and Fela. And this is Rena and a bear. And Dina was also on the first transport. So many, many Polish girls hid in Slovakia because it was safer, so-called. And their parents sent them, because Poland had been invaded, And they sent their daughters to work for rich Jewish families in Slovakia. So most of these girls were working as nannies in Slovakia. And Rena talks quite a bit about, telling the Slovaks that, to be aware it's not going to be good. It's going to get worse, and the Slovaks don't pay attention. And then one day, there's a rumor going around, and then there's a notice posted that all girls between the ages of 16 and 32 must go to the local school in the town where Rena was, and Rena was in the same town as Edith, who you just met, and that town was called Humana. But towns all over the eastern portion of Slovakia got these notices posted, or they heard about it through the news, which was a town crier, not our regular news. They didn't have TVs. And they didn't have radios. And so the girls they signed up. They were supposed to go to work. And the work was supposed to be like a shoe factory. There was a war. They thought they were going to, Slovakia was actually the largest manufacturer of army boots in the world. So everybody thought the girls were going to go to a shoe factory. And they all went voluntarily. They were so excited about going to work that they sang the Slovak national anthem on the way. And then they arrived in Poprad, which is a small town right on the edge of the mountains in Slovakia. And they were put into barracks. They started to starve them there. They started to realize that this is maybe not so wonderful. And the next thing they knew, they were being loaded into cattle cars and shipped, after 5 days, into cattle cars and shipped to Auschwitz. One of the girls that was with Rena and Edith, and this is sort of how this all started for me, was this. This is Lou Gross, and this is his cousin. The picture will shift. This is a GIF. This is Adela Gross. Adela Gross had beautiful red hair, and Rena saw her go to the gas. And Adela was healthy, and Rena wrote about it in her book. And 70 years later, Lou's wife was reading Rena's promise and went, "Oh my God, Lou, your cousin is in here." And the family had never known what happened to Adela. 70 years later, I have an email, and I get the email. I swear to you, I get the email on the 70th anniversary of the first transport to Auschwitz. And I was in Auschwitz, and I get an email from the Gross family. And I discover that some of them are still in Slovakia. So that's what starts me on this process to 999, because I realize that there's more families out there, and there's more stories out there, and there's more pain, of course, but that maybe by pulling this information together, I can help find some of these lost girls. So I meet Edith, and I hear that Edith, who is 92 when I meet her, and she was 96 when she died in July. I hear she's coming to Slovakia for the 75th anniversary, so it's 5 years later. And in the meantime, I've been getting emails from people all over the world saying, I had a cousin who was on the transport. She didn't survive. They start sending me stories, and they start sending me photographs. And yet there's questions that I have that Rena couldn't answer because she was gone. And I hadn't known I didn't have all this information before. I wrote Rena's Promise in 1992. It was very soon after the wall came down. And you have to remember that Slovakia was a communist country. And so, information getting to the West was blocked for a long, long time. And so I met Edith. You saw the little FaceTime meeting that we had, and And I said, would you like to, would you talk to me on camera? She said, yes. And we clicked. And the same, Rena and I, we met each other and it was like we were best friends, like boom. And Edith was the same way. And so Edith, we started the documentary, and then I called her up and I said, you know, my husband thinks that I should do a book. And I was afraid to tell her that I didn't want to write a book just about her. I said, what do you think? If, you know, is that okay? And she said, it should be about all of us because we were all there. And that was Edith in a nutshell. She was so generous and such an amazing, just an amazing person. So I have to open this up, sorry. So this is Edith's class. And of the Jewish girls here in this class, the only survivor of the ones that are circled that were in Auschwitz, Edith is the only survivor. This girl here also survived, and this girl here survived, but neither of them went to Auschwitz. She hid in the forest and worked with the partisans in the resistance, and she also hid. But it gives you an idea. And since I'm speaking to middle school and high school, I mean, this is, you know, this is your age group, right? And for me, that is what is so, so important about this story, is that this is not just about women's rights and women's history. This is girls' rights and girls' history. And girls were the first targets. And I go into that in the book quite a bit. This is the first official Jewish transport that Himmler ordered, and he ordered 999 girls. So it's intense. It's intense. But back to a little bit of a happier bit. Edith married. This is Edith here. This is Adela Gross's sister, Deborah. And Deborah is married to Edith's brother-in-law. So they were sisters-in-law. And this is Edith's husband, and I guess I think her husband is actually taking the picture. So suddenly 6 degrees of separation was 1 degree of separation. And as the Gross family says to me, I'm an honorary Gross at this point. And I was an honorary Kornreich as well, which is quite something for a shiksa. So I'm going to give you before I go into any more information, and of course I want to do a Q&A with everybody too, but I'm going to give you, so after the book came out in January, I started to hear from more people, and I heard from Elizabeth Bentz in Australia, and she's 96 years old. She's 97 now. And I just interviewed her a couple of weeks ago. Finally, after COVID, we were able to get a cinematographer there, and I do remote interviews where I have to. So I've interviewed. I have a survivor in Israel. I've interviewed, and I don't have the budget to fly there, so I do it on Zoom. And then Judith Spielberger, I just interviewed her on Sunday. And she is 95, and this is a photograph of them. We don't have I haven't processed the footage yet, but this is Elizabeth Bentz blowing me a kiss from Sydney, Australia. And this is Judith Spielberg. These are their maiden names. I just, you should know. And she's describing something right there for us. My research, like I said, is about lost girls. And this is maybe, on top of Adela's story, this is maybe one of the most haunting stories. And it was one of the first stories I heard about right after I met the Gross family. I put a form up on my website, so saying, if you know anybody who was on the first transport, or if you were, or if your mother was, please contact me. and I started to put pins in a map of where they came from because I hadn't found a list yet. I was desperate to find a list, but you know, I had no idea how many people were on it. There was this plaque in Slovakia saying that there was 1,000 girls, and I heard from the Hartman family in America, and they sent me these pictures. So this is Magduska Hartman, and this is Nutsi or Olga. And as I was working on, I heard that there were also cards. There were postcards that were coming from Auschwitz that were sent. I thought they were smuggled out. I actually found the cards, and because they had been donated to Museum of Jewish History in New York and also to Yad Vashem. So I sort of had to figure out, you know, I had to look at both archives. And Lenka Hertzka was their cousin, and she worked for top Gestapo in Auschwitz. And she arrived in June 1942. And this is sort of it's a narrative thread that goes through the book, these cards, because they go back and forth between the family. Have you seen Howard Magduska, Nutsi? Did they get the money we sent? Did they get the food we sent? Why don't they write? What's wrong with them? You know, and of course, we know what's wrong with them, but they don't. They literally think that the girls are hanging out in a, you know, a cafeteria, that they're at a shoe factory. That's what they think. They have no idea what Auschwitz is. And one of the cards finally arrives after they've been there for over a year. And that card says, Magduska is well. She's with Uncle Kaddish. And of course, one of the really important things about these cards is figuring out the code, because they have to get past the censors. So I spent a lot of time analyzing the messages coming in and out of Auschwitz through the censors. This is another really amazing story. This is Bertha Berkowitz, and she is just a lovely woman who she survives. And her sister Fanny survives. Fanny's not in this photograph, but the only two people in this photo who survived, this is Herschel. He was sent actually to Argentina by his family, and Bertha. This young woman here is Pesci Steiner, and she was Bertha's best friend. And Pesci saves Bertha's life, but she ends up getting very ill, probably with typhus, and she doesn't make it. This is Bertha's mother. This is Bertha's brother. You can tell they have beautiful faces, don't they? Beautiful, beautiful family. And I love this image because they're making the matzah, and they've got these long poles and these large bowls, and there's the matzah right there. So it really speaks to culture of the time and family, you know, and how it just, you know, how family was wiped out, absolutely wiped out. This is Ella Ruttman, and one of her sisters was in Auschwitz on the first transport, and then the second sister arrived later. And these are the three sisters, and I call one of them Edie, but her name was actually Edith, and they had the same last name as my Edith, which was Friedman. And this is Edie here, and this is Ella. Ella had very, very fastidious handwriting, and she ended up being picked by Dr. Mengele, poor thing, to be his scribe. And she was responsible for writing death records when he chose people for selections. And she also then, at some point towards the end of the war, was promoted to doing tattoos on women's arms when they came into camp. And she always did them very, very small and very neat. And I'll tell you, in January at the book launch, Fanny Berkowitz was there. Fanny is 96, Bertha's sister. Fanny had her number on the inside where Ella always said she put the numbers, and they're very small and very neat. and Ella's daughter was there. This is her daughter, Rosette. And we went and we looked at the number and we were like, oh my God, do you think your mom did this? So that was sort of this, small world, like, we have no idea because Ella has left us now. But this Ella and Edith met a few years ago, and it was not a happy reunion. Edith had not liked Ella or her sister in camp. They had better jobs, so they had more privileges, and so you learn about hierarchy, and you remember when you work on this type of work, it's not, people tend to deify Holocaust survivors and think they're all, saints, and they weren't. And in fact, Edie was, and she admits it in her USC Shoah testimony, she says she stole everything, and she stole food from my Edith. And it was interesting because when we started the work, my Edith was really still very angry at Edie for stealing food from her. And there were, that was like, 75, 80 years ago, right? 75 years ago. And after Edith met Ella, we were taking the elevator down, and we were talking, and I said, she was being very honest with me about her emotions about meeting, the Ella, and she said, we were teenagers, and all Edie did was act like a teenager. And, they were thrown into circumstance that no adult should be put into. And it was really interesting. It's a big part in my book about, about that realization of, we were not adults. We were still, Edith goes into this whole thing about, we still had temper tantrums. We were lazy. We didn't want to work, and you don't want to work in Auschwitz, they shoot you. I have no problem with that, right? No compunction. And it's a very, it's like, this is not a great place to be a teenager. And some of them were, not that nice to each other. And some of them were. So it's human nature, right? This is, I have a lot of really amazing documents. This is one of the most amazing. It just came in this summer. And it is the ticket for the transport. And it says Auschwitz here. It tells us the way the trains went, the track that they took, which is unusual because it's through local towns, and it was very, very hard for me to ever find that out. I went with a gut, and I was right. So when I wrote the book, I said, I think this is the way they went. Turns out I was right. I was only going by witness testimony. But probably one of the most chilling parts of this is that, I'm going to see if I can make this bigger. I'm going to go up more. If you can see right there, this is how much the Germans had to pay. The Slovak train company charged them for shipping the girls 3,700 krona and 360 krona for their luggage. This is the shipping charge of the train station. And you can see it says Poprad here. That's where they left from. And it's the 25th of March, 1942. This is a copy, and it came from a survivor's family. We do not know how she got the copy. The family found it after she died. She did work in the SS offices, and I do not know if she made a copy of it and smuggled it out or what. But it is, I've sent it to the Museum of Jewish Culture in Bratislava. It has been, it's a huge find, absolutely huge find. So you are like the second group to see it. So part of my work was to take families back to Auschwitz, and we journeyed through Slovakia, and that was actually that is part of the documentary film. And this woman is Orna Tuckman. She is from Melbourne, Australia. That is her mother's name there. And she's finding her family's name in a list in Prešov, Slovakia. And then she goes from Auschwitz, she went to Israel, and she went to Yad Vashem, and this is her in Yad Vashem, and she's looking at the original list of names. So it was one of my big finds, was finding the list, which is at Yad Vashem, and has been digitized now. And it has all the names of the young women on the transport list, and that's it right there. You can see it. It's all yellow, and I love that, I love old paper and archival stuff. I'm about to, I'm going to do, I'm going to try and do a stop. Stop. Okay, so I've stopped sharing the screen, right? Okay. So I'm going to show you, so there's two lists, and part of my research, when I, before I met Edith, I had started to analyze the lists that I got, two lists from Poprad, or from Yad Vashem. And one is the one that you just saw, and the other is this SS list. And this is the list typed alphabetically, and this is it was a carbon copy. Some of you are too young to know what a carbon copy is, but this is what we used to do. You have to type and stick carbon in. And so this was a carbon copy, and it has every name on the transport list. And then there's the yellow list, which I also had a copy of. And we typed in every single name, and we typed in, so in, and I can just show you really quickly, see if there's a good copy here, where you can sort of see the first one here. So you can see the name, that's the last name, first name right there. And that's her birth year and the town she came from. So she came from Prešov. Prešov is had quite a large, about 4,000 people in the Jewish community. And she was born on 1914. This is really important. 1914 is very, very likely a typo. And I just discovered that these might be typos. It's a big mystery. It was a big mystery to me when I was analyzing the list, why there were so many women in their 30s and 40s when the law was to take girls from 16 to 32. And you couldn't be married. There were a couple that were, but I heard from somebody in January, and she told me that her mother was alive. And I looked at the list and I said, your mother's alive? She's got to be like 102. And she said, no, she's 92 or 90, whatever, 94. And I said, how's that possible? Her birth year in the list is 1914. She says, no, it's 1924. So I thought there were like 285 teenagers on this list. There's many, many more, but we will never know how many because of the typos, and so many of them are gone. So it's one of those things when you do research and archival history, you can't always answer all the questions, but you can look at the history and the facts, and you can go, okay, so this is probably the truth, but we will never actually know completely.
Interrupt you for just a moment. Some of our families online have been asking where they can get any of the books that you've spoken about tonight. And I do know that some of them are starting to add in questions into the chat. So can you start off with the first question about where we can get these
You can
books?
Go on Amazon is probably the easiest, right? Yeah, absolutely. Rena's Promise is on Amazon, as is 999. Absolutely. And I'm just gonna, I'm absolutely gonna take questions, but I just want to finish us saying, so one of the big things about 999 is that there were actually 997 girls on the transport, and throughout I kept hearing when they get there, there's this huge, it takes forever for them to count, and they keep counting and recounting and counting and recounting. Right. Why do they do that? Because there's 997 and the list says 999. And so the original list from Slovakia has scrawled across it in German. And unfortunately, I think it's over there, so I'm not going to get it and show it to you. But it says retype in alphabetical order in German. And that's why we have this other list. Yeah.
One of the questions that came in was what inspired you to write the novel? And from a historical standpoint, why were there 999 girls or 997 specifically said?
First of all, it's not a novel, it's nonfiction. And I stick to nonfiction, and I do not, I know there's a lot of writers out there that write Holocaust fiction. I don't think we need to fictionalize the Holocaust. And I think it, in fact, I'm a bit upset at somebody who makes a lot of money on Holocaust fiction. One of her latest books, I know the person that she wrote about, and she's completely created this sort of angelic character, and Edith knew the woman she's writing about too, and she was not that way. In fact, she was thrown into a gulag because of what she did in Auschwitz. And it's written in this novel like, oh, she's such a victim, and she wasn't. She was a real nasty piece of work, and she was put in a gulag because of what she did in Auschwitz. So yeah, I do not fictionalize. I stick to the facts. I don't know that fiction actually helps us around the Holocaust. So yeah, so it's nonfiction. And I'm just going to shift. And 999, there's actually a whole chapter on it, and I won't go into it. But in fact, if you know anything about Himmler, Heinrich Himmler, he was really into astrology. And he orders 999 prison guards from Ravensbrück, female prison guards, to show up in Auschwitz on the same day as the girls. The dates that he does this, takes these actions, are auspicious to his birth sign and to the date when Goebbels announces the final solution. And I had a volunteer, an archival astrologer, who took all of this information and helped me work through it. And I truly believe that Himmler planned to have 999 girls. Yeah, and he was trying to stack the deck with magic. The Nazis were very, very into magic and occult and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's a little creepy, but I think it's probably, I was pretty amazed when I did the research going, oh, really? Yeah.
Maddy, did you want to say something?
Yes. So we are running out of time. I wanted to thank you, Miss McAdam, for sharing such poignant stories, and thank you all for listening. As we wrap up, please answer a few additional quick questions as you did before, using a new tab or window. The chat, it has been put in the chat. I would also like to thank my team, as without their help, support, and encouragement, this program would not be possible. And a very big special thanks to our very own Miss Heather Rosenthal. We are sharing with you all some resources to learn more about the Holocaust and my project. If you would like a copy of this document and additional materials, please reach out to me and my team at neveragainstories@gmail.com.
Nice.
Finally, as noted here, please follow Never Again Stories on Instagram to learn more about victims, survivors, and righteous Gentiles. In Judaism, we talk about tikkun olam, repairing the world. In Girl Scouts, we aim to make the world a better place. One way we can all do that is to remember the lessons of the Holocaust. That hate solves nothing, that indifference is just as bad, and that being brave and helping others is a beautiful thing. As Anne Frank wrote in her famous diary, how wonderful is it that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Thank you.
How true it is. And you're doing that, Maddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Koach, Maddie, thank you so very much. Heather Dune McAdam for joining us this evening. If you have a few minutes to stay on, we would love to have a few minutes for those who would like to ask some questions.
You bet. You bet.
So Toda Rabah, thank you very much for everyone being online tonight. Please feel free to leave the meeting, and if you'd like to ask Heather some questions, you may stay on to do that. And we will email all these resources out tonight as well.
Great.
Hi, thank you very much for all this information and taking the time out of your day. And thank you, Maddie, for setting this up and helping.
Thank you so
It's
much.
so important, I think, to learn about this.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
What you do is really, really important, and it takes a good person to make these books and interview these people, and we appreciate it.
It's
Thank
an
you so
honor
much.
to do it. You know, when you meet one of these women, they're just great.
Thanks for Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. I'm just looking to see if there's any other questions.
Hey,
I was
Heather,
gonna say-
I have a question for you. I'm
Yeah.
curious. So they had, so he ordered 999.
Mhm.
What happened to the other two? I wasn't clear to me. What happened to the?
Typo.
What happened? It was a typo.
There's 2 typos. Yeah.
It seems. I got you. So, okay, I got you. So wow. Did that mean the list was had a typo and so they counted 999, but 2 were miscounted, not real people?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They actually, it's just because they were typing. I don't actually know when they generated. I know they generated the list the day that the girls got on the transport. So they typed the list on March 25th in Poprad, Slovakia, and towards the end, because it's pages and pages and pages. There's like 30 names on each page. It gets really sloppy, and they run out of ink. And you can tell that, they maybe want more than one typewriter, and then there's one page that is all the numbers are crossed out and somebody's written the correct numbers in, and
Wow.
then there's one at the very bottom where they've typed a number, and then there's not enough room to put the whole name in, so they go to the next page and they make a higher number and put the name up there. So there's yeah, that's how it happened.
Wow. Thank you so much for doing this. We do appreciate it.
I used to make a lot of mistakes when I typed, so I really related to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with that whiteout.
The old days, my typing teacher with her ruler. Yeah, it is.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What made you choose to study the girls that were first taken to Auschwitz instead of like other people in the Holocaust?
Well, I met Rena, and she was just amazing. And I wrote her story. And I always say, if you meet a Holocaust survivor and they ask you to write their story, I think you might get in trouble with God if you don't. So I did it. And I thought that was it. I just didn't know. I met Rena, and I found one other woman who was on the first transport, and she had never talked about it, and she didn't want to. But I did speak to her, and she confirmed some of what Rena had told me. And so and this is like 20 years later, when I found about the Gross family and we made this amazing connection, I was pretty resistant to doing it. And then it just snowballed. It got bigger and bigger. And it just felt super, super important to do. And I will say that I think, you know, the book sort of rode the crest of the Me Too movement. And I think that made a big difference in its acceptance in the world. And when I was in Spain on my book tour, it was right before COVID. And everybody in Spain was so like, they were really, really, really taken by the fact that it was girls. And the whole fact of women's rights and girls' rights, and that how girls were targeted by the Nazis. And you know, I've been talking about this for 20 years and I've not gotten that sort of response. And it was really, so it's like our time has come to finally get recognized by history. And so that, and now, like the book I'm working on right now, which is, it's another book about a lost girls, and it's the third convoy from France to Auschwitz. And it's the first transport of with women, French Jewish women on it. And it's, you know, it's really important to me to find these lost girls, and I'll show you one of them because she's sitting right here. I'm working on my in-page inserts. So I'm doing letters as part of this book. There's a bunch of letters that have been written, and in the midst, in the letters, there's a girl who's named Bella Lempert, and she's written about throughout in a couple of letters. I mean, and she's a friend, and then she's an enemy, and you know, they're just sort of rivals and other. So we have no idea what she looks like. I know when she was arrested. She's not on that convoy. She goes later to Auschwitz. I know she doesn't survive. I don't think any of her family does because I can't find any records at Yad Vashem on her. But I was in an archive in Paris this summer, and very famous photographer's archive. And at the very bottom of a box, we're going through boxes and boxes we're looking for somebody else. And I find this really cool girl. I find this photo. Isn't she cool? And I go, who's that? Wow, like I love her glasses. I love her look. And I turn it over and there's this girl's name, Bella Lempert. And she was his neighbor, this famous photographer's neighbor. So he took this photograph of her. And then we found this is her arrest picture. So I was in this archive in Paris and I started sobbing. You know, this is like in a box somewhere, and she's disappeared off the face of the earth. And now she's not. She's going to be in my book and everybody's going to see her face, and she's not going to be gone forever. Feels really good. It's like, yes. So that's what I'm up to. Is there any other questions?
Looks like we have one question about, Maddy, how you started working with Ms. McAdam.
Yeah, how'd you find me, Maddy?
Okay, so funny story. My mom had found Miss McAdam and she told me about her and her work. And so I reached out and we started emailing, talking back and forth about my project. And we were both very excited to work with each other.
Yeah. So had your mom did she read Rena's Promise? Is that what?
No, Holocaust is, oops, you want to mute yourself? Sorry, we're in the same room, can you tell? Holocaust has always also been very near and dear to my heart. And I was on a page, one of the Holocaust information pages on Facebook, and your work was mentioned, and I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, this is perfect for your Girl Scout project. If she's willing to work with you, what a you know, you're doing Holocaust. This is Holocaust. It's about girls. What a better, it was meant to be. It's beschert.
I know it is. It's really wonderful. I was really excited. It's good for me because it gives me a chance to correct my past with the Girl Scouts because I owed dues when I left. We had to give a dime a week, I think. I think I owed 40 cents.
Do we need to clear that for you?
I was really naughty when we would go camping. I was really good at wolf howling, and when there were latrines in the campground. And so me and my friends would go, we would sneak outside and we would wolf howl anytime anybody wanted to get up at the middle of the night to go to the latrine, we would wolf howl. So they wouldn't go to the bathroom.
Nice.
I was a rotten kid.
You're making amends now.
I am making amends. It was fun anyway. I can wolf howl. That's important. That's the important thing.
That's right.
So this is really interesting. I've never seen a school like, you know, breaking out and having their cooking classes. And this is school and Zoom land, COVID world, right?
We have almost 300 students that come to us on either Tuesdays or Sunday mornings. And a lot of the teams here that you see are madrachim, which are volunteers that help out in both Judaic and Hebrew. Yeah, we love having Maddy. She has been a staple in our congregation in our madrachim program, and very proud of all the work that she has put into this. So.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay. Well, it's getting late here. My husband's snoring over there because my office is up in my bedroom.
Well, thank you very, very, very much. And yeah, thank you so very much on behalf of SHM and teaching us more about this, because I think that what Maddy will find is from her pre and post survey that hopefully we learned something new about these 997 girls.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much. Laila Tov, everybody. Good night.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Maddy.
Thank you, Heather, again.
Welcome. Yasher Koach, you did an amazing job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Heather.